Hi everyone and welcome to Fierce and Pretty. I'm Hanni, and today I thought I would talk a little bit about tarot books. I thought that I would first talk a little bit about my favorite tarot fiction books, and then about the books that I use for studying the tarot. So I told in my introduction video about how I found the crappy tarot deck from the bookstore in Finland, because in bookstores they don't sell like real tarot decks, and this flimsy little guidebook came with it. And you can imagine a person trying to learn the tarot for the first time, and you start this flimsy little book and it starts with the Sun card, and then it jumps to the Hermit. After Hermit it jumps to the Fool, and then to the Emperor, and so on. So this crazy jumping between the cards and with weird names just keeps on going. So I didn't use this very much. And the thing about the fictional tarot books, I sometimes, sorry by the way if you can hear it, it's the dog snorting downstairs and tapping around on the floor. So when I got these study books for tarot, I usually look tips from YouTube, because it's really hard to try to find the best books, and because everything needs to be ordered here in Finland, so I need to order everything from the web. I can't buy anything from a store, so I can't actually see the book and you know, make my decision if not to buy it or should I buy it. So that's why I like to look at other people's videos about tarot books. First of all, I'd like to talk about my favorite book series by Noel Eastwood, and it's called The Fool's Journey. The first book, the black one, goes through the major arcana, and the second book goes through the Fool. That's he's named Folly in this series, so he goes through the Pentacles, and then the last that is available now is through Swords. Yeah, so Noel Eastwood is still working on publishing the two other suits that are left, so the Cups and the Wands, and they should be coming. These books are 168, 162 and 130 pages. So easy to read, and it's a combination about educational but also in an easy to read type of way. I found this book for the first time as an audiobook, and I like to listen to it when I drive around in my car, because I drive a lot in my work. So I thought that as a tarot beginner, that was an easy way to dive deeper and to go into the story where he has created these actual characters about the tarot cards. So how this guy Folly is the Fool, and how he meets all the major arcana and learns from them and grows on his journey. And these two ones from the Pentacles and the Swords, plot-wise they are quite different, but all the time it goes through kind of through the minor arcana, card by card, and but in a really interesting way. And then the characters from major arcana just pop in every now and then in the story. So I think these are really fun books, also educational, and also they ignite my own thoughts and makes me think about things. So I highly recommend if you want to read something that is not so dry and something that you have to memorize all the time. So I think this is a fun series So by Noel Eastwood from Australia. He's an astrologer and a tarot reader. And I had one Skype session with Noel Eastwood going through my birth chart in astrology. So while doing that with him, I spoke with him about the books, and he said that they are continuing, even though if you go into the internet and search about these books and you find the timelines and you can see they haven't been met, like, I don't know, the cup should have been ready last year or something, but he said to me that he's working on them to be ready, edited and so on. So, good books. Then another fictional tarot book was also that I found as an audiobook. I was packing in my old house while I was moving in December, and I found this book from Amy Isaman called The Tarot Cipher. And it's like, if you like these treasure hunts and exciting books that things happen, so like a thriller type of books, and then you like tarot, you just have to love the book. So when I listened to that book, it was the first time when I learned about the Visconti tarot, and inspired by that book, I just had to buy this deck, and I chose to buy the Il Meneghello version about the Visconti Sforza. So that's why I got this and got to know a bit more about the history. I also bought another Il Meneghello after reading that or listening to that book. But one really creepy and funny thing that happened to me while I was listening to that book, I had already packed my bed was already packed for moving, so I had a mattress on the floor. And I was on a vacation, so I didn't have to work. So during daytime I was listening to that book from my headphones and fell asleep on my mattress on the floor. And I experienced something that I've never experienced before. I think after my weird diggings into the internet, and because I like to listen about OBEs and NDEs and all this fun good stuff. So during my nap, I ended up having a sleep paralysis. It was the weirdest thing ever. I knew I was sleeping, but my consciousness was awake. And then from the corner of my eye, I saw a dark figure. It was a man, clearly a man, in the corner of my room. And I got really scared, and I tried to shout and to get up, but I couldn't. And I was like, oh my God, I knew I was sleeping. And then I started to hear this really weird sound, like I was like, okay, I'm sleeping. So I was like, okay, come on, bring it on. So whatever's going to happen, come on. But then I woke up. So that was a funny little story about the Amy Isaman Tarot Cipher book. But don't worry, I promise the nightmare wasn't induced by the book, but it just happened on the same time. So that's a story that I do remember. But then I'll jump a little faster through my study books that I use for tarot. A book everybody knows, The 78 Degrees of Wisdom, by Rachel Pollack. It is rather a thick book, and it's a really good book, but for me, because I'm not an English speaker natively, I have to take my time with this book, because the way that Rachel Pollack has written this book, it just goes a little sideways and detours. It's not really analytical and straightforward type of writing. So I really enjoyed reading this book, but I read it like 1 card, 2 card at a time in sections. Then the only other book, instead of that teeny flimsy book in Finnish, that I have in Finnish is this Diane Manick's book. I don't know what's the English version, I can check it. But it's just really simple, that goes through each card and there's a page. But even though it's in Finnish, I haven't enjoyed it all that much. But for a beginner, I guess it's okay if you want to read in Finnish. But that would be an issue here in Finland. If you want to study in Finnish, you have really limited amount of materials to use. Then I ordered this. It's called The Easiest Way to Learn Tarot Ever, and 2 exclamation marks there, by A.E.Waite. It's a fun book. It's more about these, like a workbook type of thing. I'm not really super active about journaling and writing. It just feels like a lot of work to me. So that's why I haven't used this book really much. But I get good ideas about it, and maybe at some point when I get more excited about also really using my hand and writing, I might use that a bit more. Then Power Tarot by Trish MacGregor and Phyllis Vega. I bought this actually because of the spreads. I saw this book in somebody's YouTube video, can't remember anyone. I can't remember anymore whose video it was, but it has a lot of spreads. So as a tarot beginner, I like to have a good selection of spreads and that I can try and that I can look and understand. Also, this goes through all the cards, and it's not super heavy. It's a bit easier. I like that book. Then, because I bought the Centennial edition of the A.E.Waite Smith, I do have the pictorial key of the tarot by A.E.Waite. But this is the hardest book that I have, because it's Old English, and the way that the text flows, it's just, haven't read it cover to cover. I've tried, but for me it's quite hard to actually read. I will try it again later on, but for now I'm not reading it. Then I have bought this book because so far I haven't been learning a lot about the reversals. I know when I read the guidebooks and I go through them, but so far I haven't actually used the reversals. Sometimes if some card just ends up being that way, I'll read it as reversed for practice. But I haven't started this book, so I can't say any opinions about it. But as you can see, the cards, even the pictures in this book, they are reversed. So it's only reversals, and it's, let's see, over 250 pages, so a sturdy book about reversals. And I also have one deck, the deck of the Bastard, to do my studying more on the reversals. I chose my deck of the Bastard with the personalized back. I chose mine with the keywords on top and in bottom. So if I want to learn the reversals, this will be a easy way if I get blockage. So that's why I got the deck of the Bastard. So those were my study books that I have used, some of I haven't, and the books that I will keep on reading continuously, and probably want to have few more books, but I decided to put my book buyings on hold now because I have so many books, and I have a bad habit, as I said in one of my earlier videos, about just reading a bit and then reading something else and then something else. So I'll try to finish these first. Then I'll just go quickly through these other books that are either guidebooks for the decks or extension books to the decks. The Darkness of Light Tarot. I like this book, even it's quite slim, but my favorite part of this book was how Tony DiMauro goes through the timings of each suit in this deck. And an interesting detail was that he wrote that he created each suit, the cards in them, during that season also. So I think that's a cool little detail. Like the book. Book that I have read several times is for the Anna.K. I like it. It's easy to handle, easy to hold when you're lying on the sofa. It has good amount of information about each card, and I like her section of these little tips, like don't confuse this with something else, and so I like the way that the book has been created. Then a book that I haven't even read yet, and this is for my Pagan Otherworlds. A bit sturdier. Oh, a thank you note dropped out from Uzi. So I haven't started this, but it looks fairly simple. Just a paragraph for the card. But definitely intending to read this whenever I have time to dig in deeper to that deck. Then one of my favorite books is the Tarot Illuminati's book. This doesn't come with the deck, you can buy it separately. And it's by Kim Huggens. A really sturdy book, but it's a bit similar to the 78 Degrees of Wisdom, that it has so much information that I just have to read it few cards at a time. But definitely a book that I think that I will end up reading from cover to cover several times. And my favorite part in this book is in the beginning of each card is like a monologue by the card itself, like the card is talking from his or her own perspective. So that's a really fun part that I like. Then I have a small book for my other Il Meneghello deck, the Visconti di Modrone Tarot, and it's by Christina Dorsini. And this just has nice big colored images and then text about the card, each card. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. I haven't had time to read this one yet because this deck isn't a deck that I use for reading. It is not even a full deck. It's missing cards because they didn't reproduce those missing cards from imagination like they have done into the Visconti Sforza. But at some point I want to read this one and I think I have this section about learning the tarot history, so that goes a bit about in that section. And that gives me another book that is also about tarot history, even though it's also deck specific, is The Game of Saturn. And this is for the Solabusca Tarot. This is a monstrous book, a beautiful book with full colorful images of the cards, but also for a later time I just wanted to buy it. It's not the easiest book to get, so I wanted to have it since I bought the Solabusca from Barcelona. So now I have it whenever I end up having time to do my tarot history studies. Then, even though the Llewellyn Tarot is one of my favorite tarot decks, the book is a bit challenging. It goes through the Welsh mythology of behind these cards, because they have each card has a person from ancient Welsh mythology stories. But the way it's written, because I don't know the full stories behind it, it's a bit challenging to read. And sometimes these things just feel a bit separate. So even though I really love the deck, I haven't read the book from cover to cover, because it's technically, I have read the meanings of the cards and some of the stories, but it's a bit challenging to read. It might be also the knowledge wise and also the language a bit. Then I have two books for one of my absolute favorite decks, for the Starchild Akashic Tarot. This is the guidebook that I got with the deck. It's smaller, but it's nice. I've read this, but this book I actually bought even before I had the deck. This was, somebody recommended this book in some video and I didn't pay enough attention, so I just ended up ordering the book and found out that it's for this really specific deck. I didn't know anything about the deck at that time, and then when I saw the death card in here, I was just mesmerized with the card. It's really beautiful, and I ended up ordering the deck, so it was a good mistake of buying this book. I ended up getting also the deck that I really love and use a lot. Then I do have this Finnish Ukon Pakka, the Tarot Mythology Fennica Tarot book that I haven't read yet, and I haven't worked with the cards, but I have the video about that earlier. And then last but not least is this big boy, the Deviant Moon book by Valenza. This is one of the most gorgeous books I've ever seen. Full color images all over, and a lot about these stories about the history, because the whole project of creating the Deviant Moon for Valenza has been a huge, many decades long process. So wanted to have this one. Haven't read from cover to cover yet, but definitely will keep getting on back to this every now and then. But yeah, they were my books. My highlights were the Noel Eastwood books from the Fool's Journey. Really love that series. Can't wait for the last two suits to come out. And trying to hold on my book purchases for now. I have several books already that I might end up buying at some point, But if anybody has really good suggestions about books, please leave the comments below. I will definitely collect them all to my wish list and dig deeper into them. Would be highly appreciated. I like all tips. So if you do have fiction books or study books, tarot books, what are your favorite books? I would love to know. So thanks for watching and see you next time, hopefully. Bye!